What is up, guys? Delboy here. So Chris Eubank Jr. comprehensively defeats Arthur Abraham by a 12-round unanimous decision. In my opinion, Eubank Jr. won every single round, and it's the type of fight I expected. I felt this type of fight was ideal for Eubank Jr. at this stage of his career, because of up to now, to me, Eubank Jr. has never fought at world level, apart from Billy Joe Saunders, who wasn't actually world level at the time, but he was going on to world level. But at this point, he's not really fought at world level, and the Arthur Abraham fight gets him closer to that. I mean, Abraham is a two-weight world champion. He used to be a very good fighter. He's definitely well past his best now, but he's still ranked. He's still dangerous. He's still powerful. So I felt this was good matchmaking for the Eubanks and Chris Eubank Jr. You know, it'll tell us a bit more about him, because you can use it as a barometer and compare it with. You can compare Eubank's performance with Gilberto Ramirez's performance, who also beat Arthur Abraham recently by a 12-round unanimous decision. Also, Ramirez also won every round, and you can compare the two performances. And I felt that was quite similar. I think Eubank got hit a little bit more, so you might have to say Ramirez was the better performance, but that's just splitting hairs. Both guys won every single round, so Eubank Jr. did exactly what he had to do. He did what I expected him to do. I said a 12-round unanimous decision. I didn't think he was going to get Arthur Abraham out of there. Abraham is just too tough. He's a tough guy, you know, great chin, you know, good defense. I never saw Eubank getting Arthur Abraham out of there, but yeah, it was what it was, man. You know, Abraham comes out with his usual style of fighting. You know, the high guard, followed by that piston-like jab, and you know he looks for openings, and Abraham tries to fight in bursts. But you could tell in this fight that the guy was definitely past his prime. You know, he didn't let his hands go. Abraham for years has always been like that, though. He's always been a guy who doesn't really let his hands go. He'll only let his hands go maybe for like the last 30 seconds of a round, and up until that point he'll just sort of try and score with the jab and land the right hand if the opening is there. And in this fight he never really let his hands go at all. He caught Eubank with some good jabs here and there, and that's something I've come to expect from Eubank Jr. He does get hit with jabs quite flush sometimes, just because of his style, the hands down style, so that's going to happen. But none of those jabs really led to anything. They never really affected Eubank Jr. And yeah, he took them well. Other than that, man, Eubank Jr. was teeing off on Arthur Abraham. Abraham, sometimes his guard is very hard to penetrate, but Eubank Jr. was going around the sides of the guard, going to the body. He was going through the guard with uppercuts. He landed some outstanding uppercuts, you know, changing the levels from body to head. I felt Eubank's offense was very good in this fight, and I felt he controlled himself much better in this fight, which was a good thing to see, because how many times have we seen Eubank Jr. fight and he throws like a 15-punch combination, half of them are missing, or he'll like throw a left hook from halfway across the ring and he'll miss badly. He didn't do quite as much as that in this fight. You know, he still missed wildly at times, but nowhere near as much as he did against Reynold Quinlan. He was much more efficient with his punch picking, and that was good to see, because sometimes I think Eubank he has wasted a lot of shots and he's missed wildly at times, and that will give guys like George Groves, who he might fight later on, chances to counter. Today, though, he still left a lot of openings, don't get me wrong, and Arthur Abraham couldn't take those openings because he's past his best, but he still left openings. But I didn't think he was quite as reckless tonight. He was a lot more composed, and I really enjoyed his performance. Actually, I felt this was Eubank's most impressive performance to date, to be quite honest. I felt he was really good, particularly after the last performance against Reynold Quinlan. Not me personally, I felt he wasn't that great, but tonight he was really good. Loved the way how he selected his shots. The offensive creativity was excellent. And the only thing you could really say and really criticise about this performance was the lack of power, but, you know, it didn't really matter. I think Eubank hits hard enough to keep you honest. You know, I don't think many people are going to try and walk through Chris Eubank Jr. He definitely hits hard enough to make you know about it. So yeah, for me, a really impressive performance. He didn't get hit with too much. He got hit with a few jabs, a big left hand in the 11th, which he took well. But yeah, man, he was much more defensively responsible, which was good to see. Not saying the openings weren't there. You know, there's always an opening for that right hand against Eubank Jr. with a left hand low, and just some of the times where he sort of is off balance. If he gets caught in one of those moments, then it could be trouble. But I'm sure he'll iron those things out in the gym. You know, he'll keep on improving, and the future is looking good for Chris Eubank Jr. He is actually in the World Boxing Super Series now. He'll be fighting a Turkish fighter by the name of Avni Yildirim, and yeah, man, and Yildirim is a tough guy, come forward fighter. You know, quite static. Only thing with Yildirim is he's not very creative with his offense. He doesn't put his shots together very well. He's not particularly quick. He throws one shot at a time. So stylistically, I think it's a good pick for Chris Eubank Jr. You know, just in terms of styles. Yildirim, he's got okay power, but he's not like a massive puncher. So I think Yildirim is a good pick for Chris Eubank Jr. I really do. He's not a bad fighter. He's a tough guy by looks of it. But he is pretty robotic, you know. But yeah, man, we'll see what happens. I think this tournament is going to be very interesting, and Eubank Jr. definitely has a big shot here. It's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But yeah, I felt Eubank was good tonight, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he progresses in the World Boxing Super Series. As for Arthur Abraham, he's had a long career, being a 2-weight world champion. But to me, it's been obvious for like the last 2 or 3 years that the guy has been past his best. You know, he's been past his best for a little while now, and I think it's time to retire. He's had a good career, and you know, he can definitely go out of a game with his head held high. He's been in some big fights. He's fought a lot of great fighters. So Abraham can retire and, you know, be happy with his career. You know, he's picked up some decent wins as well. You know, he beat Jermaine Taylor. He beat Edison Miranda twice when Miranda was a really dangerous fighter. You know, he took Miranda's undefeated record. He beat Howard Eastman, Robert Stieglitz, Martin Murray. You know, Abraham's got a few good scalps on his resume. He's lost to the best guys. You know, he's lost to Andre Ward, Carl Froch. You know, he's only lost to the best guys. So Arthur Abraham can definitely bow out with his head held high. You know. Also, just a quick note on ITV Box Office. How do you guys think they've started? I'll ask you that question. Me personally, I didn't pay for this fight, and I'm glad I didn't, to be honest. The card wasn't that great. I felt the card was kind of forgetful. Lee Selby was good, but it wasn't really an entertaining fight. The undercard wasn't particularly great in my opinion. Kid Galahad did look good, but again, he was fighting a limited guy. There was nothing really on the undercard to get the juices flowing. The main event, while as good as Eubank Jr. looked, it was a mismatch in terms of styles and in terms of timing. So the pay-per-view, I can't see this pay-per-view doing very well, actually. I feel this time around, for the Arthur Abraham fight, there was even less buzz than the fight with Reynold Quinlan. To me, it felt like there was less buzz about this fight. And the crowd, you could even see in the crowd, the atmosphere was flat, there was empty seats. So I'm not sure how this fight is going to go down in terms of box office numbers. I think it will do poor. Rumours had it that Quinlan done poor. And to me, that fight had a lot more hype around it. So I can't see this fight doing very good numbers. So I would question, a lot of people say Chris Eubank Jr. is a star. To me, he's a potential star, but I question how big his draw power is right now. You know, if you get him in there with George Groves or Callum Smith, it's going to do big numbers. But on his own, as a standalone act, I think people overestimate Chris Eubank Jr.'s star power. I really do. But that's not to say if he's got the right dance partner, he's not going to do massive pay-per-view numbers, because he will. If he's in there with George Groves, it's going to do huge numbers. If he's in there with Callum Smith, it's going to do huge numbers. But I just don't feel it's right. It's not the right time to put Eubank Jr. on pay-per-view. It really isn't. These two fights that he's had on ITV would have been much better on regular ITV. They would have done massive numbers on terrestrial TV. Eubank Jr. versus versus these guys will do big numbers. People know the name Eubank. People who have not watched boxing in years will watch those fights because it's got the name Eubank. So I'll be honest, I've not really been that impressed with ITV pay-per-view. The first show was passable. I know they had a lot of technical issues, but the actual show itself was a fun card. We had David Price getting knocked out. We had Adam Etchis versus John Ryder in a fun fight. And they done that pay-per-view for cheap as well. So the first pay-per-view, while I didn't think it was worthy of pay-per-view regardless of that price, it was an okay start. But to me, they've regressed tonight. I really don't like the production value on ITV pay-per-view. I know it's picky, and we're boxing fans, so it's kind of stupid to talk about these things. But when you order a pay-per-view, you want those bright lights. You want those. You want to hear the atmosphere coming through the TV, and this ITV haven't really encaptured that to me. And if this pay-per-view does do low numbers again, it'll be interesting to see what ITV do. Obviously Eubank is in this World Boxing Super Series, so we know Eubank's fighting Yildirim first. Assuming he beats him, and let's say he gets George Groves in the semi-final. What station is that going to go on? Is it going to go on ITV or Sky Sports pay-per-view? Because I know who'll do a better job, and I know what I'd rather watch it on, personally. But we'll see, man. We'll see. Have ITV Box Office got the pulling power to get that fight on pay-per-view, particularly after the first two shows they've churned out? Can they compete with Sky Box Office? I don't think they can. We'll see. I've just been a little bit disappointed with ITV pay-per-view, but that's just me. What do you guys think? Peace.